So we're going to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about basically a parent-child relationship and parenting and children obeying parents and all that fun stuff. And I felt like as I'm looking through the material and I'm thinking about parenting, we should just spend the whole time in prayer. That would probably be more beneficial than anything I could possibly say. But most of the material that I'll be using this morning came from a video that we watched in our youth class, which would be about 7th grade through 12th grade. I don't remember if it was on a Sunday or a Wednesday evening. I showed the video. But the video was by Eric Owens, and if you've watched any of the PTP videos, Eric Owens is an outstanding not only gospel preacher, but also marriage counseling and parenting and all sorts of different topics that he covers. So most of my material is from him, and as I'm watching this video, I'm just thinking that, I wish more parents could also be exposed to the video. So I would encourage you, because we probably won't cover everything that he said because it was a 45-minute video, and obviously it wasn't in necessarily a class environment. He just was delivering his message to children and parents. So log on to PTP. If you don't know how to do that, the instruction sheet is in the back of the information booth. You can grab one of those sheets, log in, go to Eric Owen. You can search for him. You can also search for teens, obey your parents was the topic of the lesson. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he had to say in regard to children or teens obeying parents. And obviously we're going to use Ephesians chapter 6, the first 3 verses as our main text. But you also know that the instruction, the command for obeying parents is also found in the 10 Commandments in Exodus chapter 12. So if you're going to go back to the very beginning, honor your father and mother, and your days will be long. Ephesians chapter 6. And then also in Deuteronomy, 5th chapter, verse 16, as Moses outlines again and reiterates the commandments of God. He also mentions honoring father and mother again in there as well. And then we also have in Colossians chapter 3, verse 20, children obeying your parents in all things. I had a thought as I'm watching this video from Eric Owen, and my mind went to something I've heard said by parents. And I just wanted your initial feedback. I was like, man, I wonder how other people think or feel in regard to parenting. But one of the statements that I've heard over the years, multiple times, in multiple situations, whether it be in the church or outside the church, it's parents saying that our obligation to our children stops or goes away when they leave home. I mean, it's just cut as soon as they're out of the house. I'm done. My obligation's over. Okay? So maybe there's a yes and there's a no. Financially, don't tell my mom that, because when I was in my 50s, she helped me out financially when I was in a hard spot. What do you think about that? No. I see it's some head shaking. Maybe in some aspects. I mean, at the very least, it changes a bit, obviously. We may not be responsible, obligated to them as far as their decisions and their choices and their actions, because they're going to do things that we may or may not approve of. They're going to do things that are just against what we taught or upheld in the home. But our responsibility may be, it continues as our responsibility to them. We're not responsible for them, but to them. It never stops. In my thinking, I know from experience, not only as a parent, but having a parent constantly showing concern and worry and help and advice whenever, however I need it, in whatever kind of situation. And I'm like, I've said from the very beginning, that our parenting doesn't stop until either we are dead or our children, unfortunately, pass before us. Cresta and I, on more occasion, I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but Cresta and I, on more than one occasion, have looked at each other and gone, why do we have kids? Why? And it's more centered around not the difficulty necessarily, but the worry and the concern, and just the responsibility that goes along with it. We thought long and hard. When we got married, and I don't know if it was because of our the part we played in education, and we taught from kind of the 8th grade to the high school level, and I saw my high schoolers started teaching, taught for 5 years, and I'm like, we're not having kids. We're not having children, because I don't want to bring them into this and see the results that we're seeing from some of these children. And those of you that have anything to do with the school system, subbing or teaching or whatever, you kind of see that. And we were like, for 5, no, not doing it. And then things changed, obviously. Our thoughts.
My dad passed away in 93 when I was in my mid-60s. He taught me, he was an example to me up until the day that I still with that advice he gave me. We're responsible for our kids forever, just like we're responsible for each other. Be a role model. Be it. Our kids will go off, they're on their own, they're going to make good decisions, they're going to make bad decisions. Hopefully they survive bad decisions and learn from it and look back at us as the example of how getting through the bad times. With the school stuff you do, there are a lot of troubled kids in school. A lot. It's all the more reason for us to be there. To be that example, to show Christ in us as we go through the school.
Right.
School stuff. And I've had kids come up and they say, can you tell me why you do what you do? Why are you here? You don't have to be here. I tell them that I love you. Because I think I can make a difference in their lives. I hope that they take this really seriously. A lot of them, and not all of them, but the worse the schools are, the more reason we need.
Absolutely, 100%. And in Eric's lesson, he talks about the obligation that children have to their parents. And then he also, which was very eye-opening to me and impacted me, and why I want to share it and suggest that you watch his video, is also the obligation that parents have to their children. And when we look at Ephesians chapter 6, and let's just go there real quick and read those first 3 verses. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And then he quote, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth. And then, even in verse 4, it starts the obligation of the parent to the child with, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. And he doesn't stop there, and mentions it several different times in Ephesians, and we'll look at some of those passages. But the obligation to parents to children, children should be loved. Children should be loved, they should be nurtured, they should be protected, they should be held, they should be hugged, they should be helped, they should be taught, they should be led, they should be shown, and all of this should be done with patience, with understanding, with care, and with long suffering. And then to children, the youth, the young people that are in here this morning, your parents have given everything to you. They have done everything for you. They have sacrificed because of you. They love you, and they only want what is best for you. The children are totally dependent on their parents, and they owe them obedience. Obedience means doing what is requested of you, when it's requested, how it's requested, and the way that it is requested. And why? Why is it so important for children to obey their parents? Because they're essentially obeying God. And respect. You think about the family structure, the biblical family structure, and it has its origin from God. Its origin is from Him. So when we think about our obedience to our parents, we're also talking about our obedience to God, the Father. When we think about all of the areas in life, whether it be the church, whether it be work, whether it be government, or whether it be the home, and each has someone or entity that's representative of God. Because that's where the origin is in God. You think about the home, and it's the parent to the child. You think about the church, and it's the eldership, the leadership to its members. And you think about the government, and you have the governing authorities, those who are in office, and their responsibility to citizens. And all are bound by God for their individual roles and to lead others in the ways of God. And when we look at this Ephesians passage in verse 1, it's like we have this tendency, and I was guilty of it as well, is you're supposed to obey me. Children, look at what it says. Children, obey your parents. But as I'm listening to what Eric has to say, he turns it around and he talks about the responsibility of the parent. Because it's children, obey your parents in the Lord. And if the Lord is going to have the origin comes from him, this family organization, then we have a responsibility as parents. This is not a commandment just for the children. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. I mean, it's for us too, parents. And he spends quite a bit of time talking about the parent and their responsibility to their children in light of this verse. Obedience to God, trumps obedience to parents too, as we look at our children. And so we think about all these different aspects. What is our responsibility as a parent? It's to bring them up. To bring them up in the Lord. It's to do the things that are mentioned in Deuteronomy. And, Moses to all of Israel is regarding the commandments of God and the attributes of God and the things that they needed to do as a nation, and not only themselves but their children, and bringing them up. And let's look at that Deuteronomy chapter 6 passage. In chapter 6, and we've heard this before, and the meat of it, of what we want to do, is our responsibility as parents, is kind of in that verses 7 through 9 passage. But I want to look at all of it, starting with verse 1. This is the commandment, and these are the statutes, the judgments, which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in all the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, and your sons and your grandsons, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Therefore, what? Hear, O Israel, be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord God of your fathers has promised, a land flowing with milk and honey. Verse 4, what? Hear, again, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord. How can we be parents? What are we going to do? Love the Lord. Love the Lord your God with all your what? Heart. With all your what? Soul. And with all your what? Strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. And in verse 7, you shall teach them diligently to your children. Where does the obligation of obey your parents start? With me. With me. I will teach them diligently to my children. I will talk of them when they sit down in our house, when we walk by the way, when we lie down, when we rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be the frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Every aspect of life, everything. There are no limits, there are no boundaries to bringing them up and teaching them diligently to your children the ways of the Lord. They're continual. When they wake up, during the day, when they come home. Be talking about the Lord and His ways when you're walking along. Every opportunity. I mean, sometimes it's like, I remember when I learned my multiplication tables. Never forget it. To this day, they're the only mathematic facts that I have committed to memory. The rest of them I have to think about. But I remember the way I learned my tables, multiplication tables, is my mom put flashcards all over the house. She put them in the bathroom. She put them in my bedroom. She put them in the kitchen. She put them in the living room. They just taped them right to the wall. Everywhere that I looked, I saw a multiplication fact. And I committed them to memory. I'm thinking about this scripture and the advice that He's giving children of Israel to bring up their families and to teach their children. And I'm like, what? You know, we care about multiplication facts, but what about scripture? What about the ways of the Lord? How are they getting that? If it's just down the hall in those Bible classes, that's not going to be enough. If you're relying on Anita Williams or Gwen or Hannah or some of the other wonderful ladies that have been teaching those classes down there, if you're relying on them to teach your children the ways of the Lord, they can't do it on their own. We have to do it. It's our responsibility as parents to bring them up knowing the Lord. And not only knowing who He is, but knowing about Him, knowing His ways, His commands, His statutes, the things that He represents. And how do we teach them? What is probably the number one way we can teach our children?
Well, being an example.
Doing it. All of these things that Moses is describing here are action kind of things. Yeah, there's a time to sit down and open the Word and have our family Bible study or reading a devotional, family devotional. You know, that's great. And I would certainly encourage doing that. But number one is by example. When they wake up, when they go throughout the day, when they come home, before they go to bed, what is our example showing them each and every day? Because this part of it, our part, parents, is important to the obeying your parents part in regard to children. Turn it toward us first. How are we being? How are we acting? What example are we setting? How do they see us interacting with other people? How do they see us acting toward authority and leadership? You know, to borrow a example from 1 John 4 in verse 20 and 21, you know, and a play on that. You know, if you, children, if you won't obey your parents who you've seen and interact with every day, how will you ever obey God who you've not seen? They see us every day. When they wake up, when they go to bed, throughout the day, when they come home, every opportunity they have. So it's why should children, why is it important for children to obey their parents? Well, if we're doing the things that we're to do in the Lord, there's a lot of good reasons why children should obey their parents. And One is they will teach you the truth about God. If we're doing the things that we need to do, they will, parents will teach their children the truth about God. So what are we teaching our children in regard to the truth about God? We look at Ephesians go back to Ephesians in chapter 1. Starting with verse 7, in him we have redemption through his blood. Are we teaching our children that? The forgiveness of sin according to the riches of his grace. Do our children know that? Which he made to abound toward us in all wisdom and prudence, having made known to us the mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure, which he purposed in himself. Think of applying that to family. We as parents will teach of the mysteries of God. We will teach about the nature of God. We will teach about the goodness of God. We will show them how it is to walk in God. Parents will love God. And if we don't teach them about God, who will? Where will they hear it? Where will they see it? Where will they acknowledge it if we aren't doing it? And it doesn't come from us. One of the impactful things that Eric said was, parents, if we want respect and obedience from our children, show respect and obedience to God. How can you expect something that you're not giving yourself? They'll look and they'll see how you react toward leadership. They'll remember and they'll see how you react toward worshiping God. We joke about it. Just the other day I was talking to someone and we were talking about what happens from the house to the church building on Sunday morning. Think about that. Is it pandemonium? Is it bickering? Is it rushing? Is it arguing? Is it conflict? Is it frustration? And then we pull up. Someone lets us in. We straighten our jackets. And we get out and we put on that smile. What are we teaching our children about God? And sometimes we don't think. And people are like, parents are like, oh, I was surprised that they were listening. I'm surprised that they caught that. I didn't know they were. They're listening. They're watching. Their minds are turning. How can we expect them to respect and obey when we don't have that toward God? Why should children obey their parents? Because they will protect you physically and spiritually. That's our responsibility as parents. we don't as parents make rules just to make rules. And we don't make rules to stop you from having fun for the sake of not having fun. There are reasons behind the actions of parents. We have a responsibility to morally teach them. In Ephesians again, Ephesians is fantastic for families. If you want to reread the Ephesian letter, but in the first two verses of chapter 5, therefore be imitators of God as dear children. Walk in love as Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling aroma. I like in that verse 3 of chapter 6, obedience produces blessing. And also obedience, and you talk about the protection physically, obedience also offers security. We know. As parents. In verse 3, it says that if you do these things, it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. The promise of a long life, not a guarantee. How many times have we read or have seen things that have happened to our young people over the course of time? And had they listened to our words, had they heeded our warnings, had they obeyed our suggestions or commands, they might still be alive today. We know what the alternative is to a promise of a long life. We can read about some of those things. Even that if you continue on in that chapter 5, verse 3, it lists some of the things. Fornication, uncleanliness, covetousness. Those things should not even be named among you, because it's not even fitting for a Christian. Filthiness, foolish talking, coarse jesting, those aren't fitting. For you know that no fornicator, unclean person, nor covetous man, nor idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ. Therefore, in verse 7, don't even be partakers with them. We know the alternative. If you don't heed the advice of parents, the godly advice of parents, the experience that parents, this promise to live long life probably won't happen. If you're engaged in, and hopefully that you're not already, no one's involved in these types of things, but if you are, there's a difficult road ahead. There's a challenging road ahead. There's a road that may things, if you practice such things as, Romans chapter 1, verse 32, if you practice such things, and many of them are the same things that are mentioned here in Ephesians, you're worthy of death. Those who do such things are worthy of death. That doesn't speak to the promise of a long life, but if you honor your father and mother, you obey your parents in the Lord, which is what is right, you will live well. And you may live long on the earth if you do what God has asked and you obey your parents. And you think about our children today. I see these things all the time pop up on social media. It says that, children these days are so different than children 10, 15, 20 years ago. I disagree with that. I think our children these days are the same. It's society. It's the world in which they live that has become different, and that is changing. Our children right now are probably in more danger now than they've ever been, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. They're being lied to, so who's going to tell them the truth? Who are we waiting for to tell them the truth about God? They're going to be told there is no God. So who's going to tell them otherwise? That creation was just a random chance. That you have no soul. That there's no life beyond this one. That your gender is up to you. You can do whatever you want. It's your body. Morality is just a personal decision that you have to make. And it's okay to sleep with someone before you're married, as long as you love them. What does God say? What does God say? When are we going to go back to what does God think on the subject versus what we think, or what society thinks, or what the school kids think, what God thinks? In Luke chapter 15, 11 through 32, talks about the prodigal son. And I'd done a lesson in here over the prodigal son in the adult class. May we not get to the point where we can't come back from the far country. That we get to the point where the far country is comfortable and more pleasing and more gratifying than coming home. Disobedience to godly, God-fearing, God-knowing parents will lead a young person down a path that will jeopardize their eternal soul. And that's ageless. That can be at any age, at any time. So what we do now, when our children are young, is so important. Prodigal son left. He got what was owed him, and he left. I'm telling you, young people, and I know we don't have a whole lot in here this morning, but I would tell them, do not leave home. Do not leave home. I know there's a time for that. Probably when you're 40. It's probably a good time to leave. But if you have godly parents that fear the Lord, that honor the Lord, that obey the Lord, don't leave home. Stay under their leadership. Stay under their advice and their experience. Learn from them. Don't leave. Stay. Because in the far country, there may be more than you bargained for. There may be far more issues than what you thought there would be. It may be much harder than you could have possibly imagined. But you can also always come home. Always come home. And that's any age. That's an ageless invitation as well. I know we're running out of time, but let's have a prayer for our parents and our young people. Father, we're just so thankful for our time together. And we're grateful for the words and wisdom of so many that have gone before us. Solomon and Moses and all those, Father, that gave us advice and how to live our lives in a godly way. May we as parents be mindful of what we do and what we say and what we teach and how we teach it and the constant effort that we make to bring our children up in you. And children and young people, may we look to our parents, our godly parents, for our advice and for our thoughts and our actions and everything that we do in life, knowing that they know your ways. Just bless us all, Father, regardless of, even if we have no children, that we are an impact on children. Children watch and listen to what we have to say and do. And may we never take for granted the influence that we have on them. Bless those, Father, with children. And bless those that are thinking about having children, that you give them the courage and